So, let's start. Bonjour tout le monde, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Bienvenue ici à l'Assemblée publique nationale de l'ACPL, l'Association canadienne des parcs et loisirs. Welcome to CPRA's National Town Hall. Mon nom est Martin Sanson. Je suis le chef de direction de l'ACPL. My name's Martin, and I am the very grateful CEO of the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. Ensemble, baptisons la voix nationale du secteur. Building the sector's national voice together. It's great to see everybody. So today's agenda, welcome on behalf of all of us here at CPRA. It's great to see you all. Growing group. Yeah, we really do have a lot of people on the call. That's fabulous. We're going to do a land acknowledgement. We're going to hear virtually from our president, Gord Tate. We're going to talk a little bit about the context we're in. Then I'm going to hand it over to the inimitable Nancy Dubois, who is the project lead for the renewal of the Framework for Recreation and Parks in Canada, which is one of the most important projects that we are engaged in. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our pre-budget submission. We're going to hear from Rose Butler at Homeward Public Affairs, and then a number of the team members, the superstar team members at CPRA, including CJ Blye, who is kind of our conscience on all things related to parks and public spaces. Colleen Decker, our national program manager for the Green Jobs program, and she contributes in many other ways. And of course, we'll hear from Cassidy Robinson, our communications lead, at the end. One thing I would encourage you is to pose questions in the chat. You can do that en français ou en anglais. The recording will be available on YouTube afterwards. We probably won't get to all the questions and comments, but we will follow up with you afterwards. Let's do a land acknowledgement. So at CPRA, we acknowledge that our work and the work of our members and partners take place on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples right across this land. We really believe that we have an enormous amount to learn from Indigenous knowledge systems, particularly as it pertains to climate change and environmental stewardship. Our approach is guided by the belief that our well-being and liberation are bound together with the well-being and liberation of our Indigenous neighbors. We don't think reconciliation is about helping. We think it's about walking together on a shared journey, building a future where all communities thrive in harmony with one another and the natural world.
Hi, folks. Welcome to CPRA's first annual National Virtual Town Hall. My name is Gord Tate. I'm coming to you today from beautiful Nova Scotia, where I have the privilege, like you, of delivering the programs and services that make our communities complete. I also have the honor of serving as CPRA's president, which gives me an excellent vantage point for what is happening across our sector. Martin and I are just completing conversations with all 13 of our provincial and territorial members ahead of our in-person meetings in Winnipeg later this month. And while each jurisdiction is unique, it is remarkable how the challenges are consistent across the country. Outdated infrastructure, shortage of workers, the evolving role our sector plays in crisis preparedness and response, and how essential we are to fostering resilience during challenging times. You are not alone, and together we are stronger. We're sensing that something is shifting. Our sector is transforming and ready to take the next step together. The energy is real, the momentum is building, and more people are paying attention to the contributions we make. This is our moment, I think. We are a community, we are a collective, and the work ahead of us, anchored in the renewal of the Framework for Recreation and Parks in Canada, is about harnessing the energy and directing it with purpose. Together, we can make it something much more powerful. You matter, your efforts matter, and our sector matters. Thank you for being here today. Sorry that I couldn't join you. Now, Martin, back over to you.
All right, thanks, Gord. Okay, we got time for our first poll. I'm not seeing the chat here, and I just want to make sure that everything is going well. So, do I have the team just checking in on the chat and make sure that people are hearing things? Oh, there's the chat. All right, it's all good. Amazing. Okay, so our first poll. Just tell us where you're from. Oh, there's David Gorley, Homeward Public Affairs. Thanks for coming, David. Lovely to see you. All right, we'll give everyone another second or two. And then Emma, I guess will you click off the poll and then we get to see the poll results, get a sense of where everyone is from? Okay, not bad, not bad. Wow. Truly national representation. I think every province and territory is represented. That's amazing. Well, it's great. We are a community. That's a really important message. You're going to hear it over and over through this call. And I'll be shouting out quite a few organizations and individuals as we go. So let's get on to the next thing. So very quickly, CPRA's purpose is to champion the vital role that the recreation and parks sector plays in building healthy, vibrant, and resilient communities. Our role is to champion your extremely important work. I hope you feel proud of it. We envision a future where public spaces, parks, programs, and services thrive, and that we're enhancing the well-being of all those who live in Canada. We do three things. Number one, we convene community. Number two, we try to deliver resources to that community. So you can think about the Green Jobs program, which is wage subsidies. You can also think about Can Active Insights, which is a data platform, which I encourage you to explore. And we will be talking a little bit today about some other resources that we're bringing to the sector. And then finally, we're a voice on behalf of the sector, largely to the federal government, but in coordination with our members to provincial and territorial governments as well. Our pledge is to collaborate, to share resources, and to build connections. That's what we're doing here right now. And I would be remiss if I didn't share with you what I believe is to be our most valuable asset, which is the CPRA Alliance, our members, the 13 provincial and territorial recreation and parks associations, and by extension, all their members, which are 95% of Canadian municipalities. If you are not connected to your local recreation and parks association, I strongly recommend that you do that. They're doing unbelievable work, and they're all contributing to the national conversation. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of context here. We're working on 5 big things at the moment at CPRA. The first is the framework for recreation in Canada, for recreation and parks in Canada. We're going to talk a lot about that in a moment. I'm going to introduce Nancy Dubois. We'll touch briefly on Can Active Insights, which is a data platform that we are hosting in partnership with CIRC and CFLRI and our data partner Active Exchange. We have the Advocacy Capacity Building Initiative, which we're launching today. We'll talk about that in a moment. We have in-person activation, Forward Together Summit 2.0. We'll touch briefly on that. And then we're launching a campaign. I'm not going to scoop myself. We'll get to that in a moment. Before we move on to the framework, I just wanted to give a shout out to Chris Cameron at the Canadian Fitness Lifestyle Research Institute, Kim Gertler at the Sport Information Resource Center, who are partnering with us to develop a for the sector, by the sector national data platform to help you guys and all decision makers in our sector make better decisions. It's powered by Active Exchange. We're very, very grateful for that partnership. canactiveinsights.ca. I encourage you to check it out. There's lots of free functionality there. We want you involved and we want your feedback. All right, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Nancy Dubois, who is the project lead of the renewal of the Framework for Recreation in Parks in Canada. I've had the privilege of working with Nancy for almost 4 years now, and I can tell you there are few people who care more about this work, and there are a few people who are doing more to worry the details forward. Nancy's talked to thousands of people over the last couple of years, and she's here to report on progress for the renewal of the Framework for Recreation and Parks in Canada. Nancy, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. Hello, everyone. I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we've come from, where we are now, and where we're going with respect to the framework. So you'll see on this first slide here that we have added the dimension of parks in the 2015 version of the framework. It wasn't featured nearly as strongly as we need it to be, so that's one of the evolutions so far. The other aspects of our evolving framework. If you go to the next slide, I've just mentioned it started in 2015 with the first edition. It was at that point pretty much, actually go back, please. Back a couple of slides. There, that's fine, thank you.
Sorry about that, Nancy.
Okay. The first edition was just primarily a document, didn't have much else involved with it, and we want to really ramp up the kinds of supports that I'll talk to you about more in just a moment. We did do a short update in 2024, and you'll see at the bottom of this slide the URL for the page on the CPRA website where you can find all of these documents or steps that I'm outlining here. During the last year, in the first phase of this, we conducted a literature review with the help of Troy Glover and Krista Costas Bradstreet. As Martin mentioned, we talked to a lot of people and generated what we called the summary of findings, which you can also find on that CPRA webpage. So out of that process, we bring ourselves now to having identified some potential priorities, which we are now calling critical shifts. And I'll make that connection for you a little bit deeper in a moment. These were the things that emerged through our conversations, and I won't go through all the details here, but I'll just highlight that they're certainly, and they're not in any particular rank order on this particular slide. So access to quality facilities, both indoors and outdoors, so that whole infrastructure conversation, the workforce development aspect, safe and welcoming recreation and park spaces in which everyone feels a sense of belonging, strong and multi-sector collaborations that go beyond perhaps some of the typical partners within recreation. National shared measurement system to monitor progress. This was an area that also was not included in the first version for good reason at the time, but we want to have a stronger evaluation component as we move forward with this version. And then lastly, but certainly not least, positioning recreation and parks as a vital public service. So that brings us to where we are now. The overall approach right now with our 2026 phase 2, which really has two deliverables to it. One is a actual framework that's written and promoted across the sector. And secondly, that we are starting to work around a model for how we might roll this out. I mentioned earlier, we want it to be much more than a document, and we heard that loud and clear through the consultations that we did last year. I already mentioned that, so I'll back up for a moment. We know that this is an opportunity to be bold, and this links to our systemic changes that I referred to earlier. You've seen the inclusion of parks in the title. We also are very keen to add a lens that addresses arts and culture, because we know that many of you who work at the local level particularly have seen over the last several years a combination of your efforts in your departments of what might have used to be separated between recreation and arts and culture, whatever name they go by, but very often now they're combined, and the strategies and plans reflect both of these elements. You'll also see a very intentional effort towards the inclusion of recreational and community sport, as well as a co-design approach with both a Francophone and an Indigenous perspective brought in as we build this. I mentioned the evaluation component that we'll add. We also want to ensure alignment with existing strategies. We heard in the consultation phase that it's sometimes very confusing for people to put together the various strategies and plans that are available. So I've just listed a couple here. One is the new Aboriginal Sports Circles Active Together plan, as well as the newly released 3.0 version of the Canadian Sport Policy. I wanted to leave you here with the opportunities that we have created so far around engagement for the sector. So how are people involved in writing this? We have a framework leadership team that meets monthly and has a big job in front of them to guide this process. There are about 22 members of that team right now, and each brings not only a very, very strong network to the table, but also a very specific area of expertise. We're currently recruiting the expert review panel, which will be a small number of people with a dedicated view to the review and really wordsmithing the document. We are creating, and have started with a few of them to begin with, what we're calling issue-specific discussion groups. And you'll hear more in just a moment about how you might want to be involved in some of these as we move forward. As we set the priorities, you'll recognize the term priorities and goals from the first version, perhaps, which we're now calling these critical shifts. Likely there'll be a group on each of those to really dig into the depth of what it involves and where we should be going with things. The last one here will link to what I'm going to share with you just next is our collective impact approach. And we are going to put up a poll at the end of this section around your potential interest in joining a collective that is an optional opportunity for folks to not only during the development phase as we're moving through, but also afterwards as we move towards the most exciting part of all of this, which is the implementation of what the framework is actually going to help drive and to which we'll monitor progress. So the next slide tells you a little bit about what this collective impact approach is all about. We're not going to go into detail with this, but just so you know, these are all very much on our radar as we're building and moving towards what this model could look like for the sector. The shared agenda at the top is the framework itself. It's the document that guides the common understanding and the shared goals. These will be where you see these critical shifts that address system change, which is a fairly large expansion of the first version of the framework, which was much more sort of concept related. This will deal with what needs to change. It's our opportunity to be bold. The shared measurement aspect will have an opportunity for everyone who's involved in the collective to help monitor how we're doing in terms of progress towards these shared measure or shared agenda items. The mutually reinforcing activities is where the rubber hits the road. It's the coordinated activities that everyone takes on in support of the framework progress. Certainly, people will be doing more than those in their own communities. It's not an expectation that every community and every organization will work on every priority. That's simply just not reasonable in terms of capacity or priority needs, but that there is some contribution that everyone can make. Continuous communication is key in a collective impact approach to the degree that people want to be informed and sharing amongst themselves. And so things like a community of practice, probably more than one version of that, will emerge through this. And then lastly, the key role of an organization such as CPRA in providing the backbone support that allows for things like secretariat, financial management, and some of the day-to-day operations of the organization that help to contribute to all of this. So that brings me to a shift in presenter. I'm going to turn things over to CJ Blye, who is going to tell you a little bit more about the park side of the equation. CJ?
Thanks, Nancy. And it's great to see so many folks on the call today from all across the country and representing sort of different versions of what we all do across this vast sector that we call recreation and parks. Specifically, I just want to draw our attention to an initiative that I've been really fortunate to work with CPRA on and how we're really seeing this show up in the framework for recreation and parks. So about a year ago, 11 months ago, we gathered some 160 or so folks in beautiful Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, to talk about parks and green spaces, specifically under the banner of welcoming all Canadians and all folks in this country to parks and green spaces to create inclusive parks and green space environments that foster belonging and sense of place and connection for everyone across this country. This event allowed us to engage with the sector in various ways. We had a national research report that if you're interested, we have a webinar that we hosted in the fall, posted on our YouTube account and on our website. We have a research report that came out of that, and we also have some key findings that came out of this event as well. The key findings report are really relevant to the work within the framework for two main outcomes that I wanted to highlight here today. The first is that across the park sector, we heard over and over throughout these different mechanisms that collective impact for a systems change approach was essential. And I just want to be really clear that some of what Nancy had said just now, we actually hadn't verbally shared across the sector. This was coming to us in all different ways, both in Nancy's consultation and in our specific work within the park sector. The park sector sort of collaboratively articulated, and we were really fortunate to work with Chloe Dragon-Smith and Rachel Benningfield to articulate this shared vision that all Canadians have access to inclusive and welcoming parks and green spaces. And we know that this work will require us to focus on relationships and reciprocity. And in our report, we go into a little bit more detail there as well and connecting to and learning from the land. that's unique to the park sector. The second piece was this need for a national network. And so CPRA has been really lucky to form some fantastic partnerships over the last 2 years through our Inclusive Green Spaces work. And we, in some cases, have strengthened relationships, and in other cases, have developed new relationships. But we're really excited about this idea of the national network. Specifically, the Framework for Recreation in Canada's collective impact approach will have various communities of practice. And we know that the park sector needs places to gather and share that are unique to the park sector and unique to the work that those of us in green spaces do every day, and opportunities for overlap across as well. The National Network is a partnership that's been envisioned with park people, with the Canadian Parks Council, with Parks Canada, and with CIPSL. And I see representatives from those organizations on the call here today. And we're just really looking forward to the different ways that we engage and come together as a sector through this work under the Framework for Recreation and Parks in Canada. Yeah, I think those are the key things that I wanted to highlight from our work in inclusive green spaces. And there's opportunities to engage specifically to make sure that the parks community and the park sector feels represented in this framework. And as Nancy mentioned, we have a wonderful group of folks that we've already started working with. And if you feel like you have some real interest in contributing to this conversation, please reach out and let us know or share some thoughts today. Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, CJ. I'll wrap up with a brief overview of the timeline for where we are at right now. The beginning of this time frame, you'll see where we came from in November of 2025, which takes us through to the spring. Now we're working towards an outcome of February 27th in Quebec City, when the First Ministers gather for the Canada Games, at which time we will present the framework. There's quite a large lead up time to that, beginning in the fall of 2026. So we're aiming that the framework document will be pretty much a product that can be shared around the timeframe of October of this fall. So we've got a lot of work to do in the next few months. You'll see over at the bottom where there are some ongoing pieces that you'll you'll hear more about as we go along. One of the to-dos or the next steps with all of this is to invite you over the next probably week or two to sign up for this collective if you would like to be part of that ongoing input, as well as the energy that's going to carry this thing forward with lots and lots of enthusiasm and momentum. We're going to turn our attention right now to two polls. One is on the next slide. You'll see the definition or description of recreation in parks, which was included in the 2015 version. We're working right now with our framework leadership team to refine this. It may look very different because 10 years goes by and a lot of things have changed in the sector. So our first poll is going to bring you to an opportunity to offer some words or phrases that may provide input to this particular definition, or start to think anew about what it might sound like. We're not being exclusive to, we want to be inclusive to including parks, the arts and culture component, as well as that community sport aspect. So I'll ask that the polls can come up now and give you a chance to complete those. And while you're doing that, we'll check if there's any questions that have gone into the Q&A part. If you could avoid putting questions in the chat and instead use the Q&A function that's at the bottom of your screen for most of you, I would think.
So while we do that, Nancy, I did just notice that Rick Gilbert posed in the chat before we provided that instruction, and I think I can partially answer, but CJ would invite you to offer your perspective. And Rick asks, do inclusive green spaces include intentional reference to opportunities provided at no cost? Yes, we believe that green space should be available to everybody in this country. CJ, would you add anything to that?
No, I just responded in the chat directly.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay, let's keep that open. And by the way, folks, we are going to be calling for questions. So if you want to pose any questions on this, on anything on your mind, we want to hear from you. We will not be able to get to all questions during the call, but we will endeavor to follow up with people if we don't answer them over the next sort of 60 minutes. Okay. Want to leave that up for another bit? Let people type away. We got a text box there. What words or phrases would you recommend to describe or define recreation for the future that would be inclusive of parks, arts and culture, and recreational sport? And of course, the second question, do you see yourself as part of the collective? We hope you do. We certainly need you.
So I think at this point in time, I will say adieu. Thank you very much for your attention to this, and I welcome any comments and questions as we move forward. You're a key group to be connecting with throughout this process. So thank you very much, and I'll turn things back to Martin.
That's amazing. And thank you, Nancy, for all the work that you're doing on this. Okay, can we close off that poll and see what we got? And that might inspire some. All right, so we got a lot. So obviously we're not going to look at all of the text answers. 68% of the people do see themselves as part of the collective. That's amazing. A few say no, some say not yet, but I'd like to be. Tell me more. Okay, that's perfect. This is really great. And we will be following up with folks based on these poll questions. You can also always reach out to us at info@cpra.ca. Okay, let's go. Poll 2, we did that already. Okay, let's look at some questions. Right now, we have a question from Pat McIntosh. So I'm just going to read this as it's come in. One of the key themes coming out of engagement was positioning recreation as a vital public service. And about 70% of respondents identifying increased alignment and investment with the health sector as a key area for growth. I'm going to stop there and say yes. Knowing the role that healthy eating plays in many aspects of health, do you see the framework placing greater emphasis on the need for recreation centers to offer healthy foods and drinks to support health? Many municipalities, facilities use the framework as a guidance document and having strong support for healthy eating, and the document carries a lot of weight. I spend a lot of time in rinks, and this question really resonates with me. Nancy, I see you've come on. What do you have anything to add to that?
Pat, you've really identified two key areas. One is expansion into the role of the health sector, and we have every intention to do that. We hear repeatedly that well-being of communities, of individuals, is a key component of what the framework is all about. So as we work towards a vision statement and what the purpose of the health sector is one that we're going to be particularly keen on connecting with. As far as the healthy eating component, we haven't heard much about that, so thank you for raising that in this context. We are currently moving towards the time when we're going to try and set these critical issues and critical shifts. So we'll certainly add that to the mix and take it under advisement. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really excellent question. Thank you for posing it. Haley Jones asks, what is the time commitment and JD for the collective? Will you be taking everyone or looking to have balanced representation? So we're trying to create a broad national community of practice. We would like everybody that wants to be part of the collective to see themselves reflected in it, to take value from it, to be able to contribute value from it. The degree to which people are able to engage, we'll have to assess on an individual or organizational basis. But we want people to be involved, and we all absolutely want their involvement to yield some benefit for them. So imagine through that community of practice that we're giving tools and resources, and we'll talk about an example of that in a few minutes. But the question, Haley, is not quite as straightforward, or the answer to the question is not quite as straightforward as the question itself. But we're going to be inclusive. Nancy, anything to add?
No, I don't think so. Thanks, Martin.
Okay. Okay, we'll take one more question from Jaylene Murray, and then we'll move on. So how will the framework be aligned with the growing movement of recreation prescription and social prescription? Excellent question. Part of the reason that we're being so explicit about including parks in the renewed framework for recreation and parks in Canada is because it turns out connecting to nature is profoundly beneficial to one's well-being, and we are going to make that a central component of it. And in fact, if you just hang on a little bit later in the program, we're going to talk about something specific that we're doing that we want to invite you to participate in that will help us elevate the idea of connecting people to nature to generally improve well-being. It's an excellent question. So we have a couple more questions being posed. We're going to move on from those. If we can come back to them, we will, but we certainly will be following up with answers.
Martin, if I could just add to the question about social prescribing, in that list of priorities that I shared with you from phase one consultations, so there were several subcategories under there. We also, and social prescribing was one of those. It also emerged in the literature review very prominently. So it's on the radar.
That's amazing, Nancy. So we're going to talk a little bit about our pre-budget submission right now. Before I do that, I just want to invite Rose Butler. She's one of our advisors from Homeward Public Affairs. I can't speak highly enough of the contribution that Homeward Public Affairs are making to the overall discussion that we're having here today in multiple ways. We're going to be You're going to be seeing how Homeward is woven into our work in multiple ways in the coming slides. But for now, Rose, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Martin, and thanks for inviting me to be here today. My colleague David is also on the call, I believe. But I really just want to acknowledge the incredible work that is happening across the sector. And that's really, as a mom, I can see the incredible work you do across the sector, but also bringing communities together and building that healthy, safe environment for people to engage in their community and recreation. So thank you all for that. And we've been really privileged to work alongside CPRA over the past year to strengthen that story about what the members of this association really deliver in community and how close they are to those pieces. We've worked on a strategic federal engagement strategy, and we'll talk a bit more about the pre-budget submission we developed this year. We were also key in the Forward Together Summit, which some of you might have been engaged in last year in the Day of Action, and creating some advocacy tools, as Martin has teased around the advocacy building initiative. So with that, I don't have the visual here.
Yep,
There it is. Okay, I've got it now.
Yeah, so Rose, hang on. I'm going to move us to the pre-budget submission slide, and we'll go over each of the four recommendations quickly. Before we do that, though, I want to say something that I wrote in the chat related to the framework, which is all the work that we're doing on the framework right now. We have to acknowledge that it is built on the original document released in 2015. And a lot of people contributed to that. So, we're kind of standing on the shoulders of giants, and I wanted to very much acknowledge that. Some of those people are on the call today. So thank you, and we hope that you stay involved, and we definitely want your perspective as the process continues. Okay, so back to our pre-budget submission. So I'm going to bounce back forth between Rose and I. So I'm going to just give you the high level. We're making four recommendations in our pre-budget submission, and that becomes our de facto advocacy agenda. When we did the framework consultations, we heard two things in broad strokes. The first one, which Nancy just summarized for you, which is be bold, think differently, do something different. We don't just want another document. We want a strategy. We want something to be a part of. That's what we're building around collective impact. But the second thing that we heard was an inventory of issues. The first one, so I meant, you can see here, we're calling for an investment to help support collective impact, or recommending it. But the big issues that seem to be prevalent in all corners of the country, number one is infrastructure. Number two is the role that the sector is increasingly playing in crisis preparedness and response. Number three is a shortage of workers, which happens to be taking place at a time when youth unemployment is at an all-time high. So we're going to go over what we're precisely recommending in each of these. I will invite Rose to talk just a little bit to each of the 4 points. And Rose, right now, the slide that's on deck is the four recommendations that we're making, not in the order that you're used to seeing them, because I wanted to lead with the collective impact just because of the segue from the framework. But anyhow, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Martin. I can see it. I can see it now. So and really hearing the strategy and the plan for the strategy really lets me see this bigger picture. There's such opportunity now. the government is actually, the federal government is really understanding how infrastructure is just not roads. It's also that community infrastructure, and that builds towards healthier communities, that builds towards community resilience and climate resilience. So it's all interconnected. So recent announcements around investments in infrastructure and in sport, particularly in the Spring Economic Statement, really give an opportunity here to position CPRA and its membership across Canada, all of you, as delivery mechanisms and as partners to work with to ensure that those investments in infrastructure reach communities, and you're all best positioned to advise on that piece. And that is why the collective impact, I think, is here first, and really being able to catalyze that and catalyze those investments to really ensure that they're coordinated and that they're making a difference on the ground in communities across Canada. In terms of the infrastructure ask, so they announced the Build Strong Communities Fund. They announced it alongside an announcement of a new facility in Brampton, which is fantastic. But what is missing from that is a carve out for recreation facilities. So there is a carve out for health in that fund. And I think with the focus on sport, on health, on how all these interplay, asking for the same type of carve out to ensure that rec doesn't get lost in that fund is really timely in positioning it in this way. Do you want me to go on to crisis preparedness, Martin?
Yeah. The only thing I'll just emphasize something that you said, which is this dedicated stream, right? We really do not want the federal government or governments at any levels to forget about recreation and parks infrastructure, which we believe to be absolutely vital community assets to building the complete communities in which we all want to live, work, play, and raise our children. So the key thing here is dedicated stream. And that is what we're going to be recommending, and it's going to be the basis of our, of our message on infrastructure. Back over to you, Rose.
Yeah, and I think the message with Nancy and with yourself has been think big, but it's actually not thinking big. It's thinking practically. If you want to maximize the impact of investments in rec infrastructure, in parks, in nature, including the folks who are delivering this, including folks who are on the ground and positioning that collective impact is what's really going to get the biggest bang for your buck at the community level. And that's how we're really positioning it. It enables to maximize federal investments that they're already considering. So in terms of crisis preparedness, we've seen this over the years, recreation facilities, their role in and rec in responding to crisis situations, in building that community resilience, and the climate resilience is really key. But there hasn't been a really specific investment in that. So we're positioning, or we're asking $5 million annually to actually invest in that piece of giving that community resilience and economic resilience and climate resilience as we continue to see these climate pieces come into effect with flooding and those kinds of pieces. Anything you want to say on that, Martin?
No, just I'm really, really surprised. This is something on part of my learning curve is the degree to which the sector is contributing during times of crisis. Those of you who have heard me speak on this issue before know that we have a friend, Kate, from Flin Flon, recreation director in Flin Flon. The summer that she had last year, I mean, she's a hero in my opinion, what she was able to pull off for her community. I don't think that 99% of Canadians would not put what she did last summer, would not think of that on the job description of a director of recreation. She played an incredibly important role, and we've got, Nancy will correct me if the numbers are wrong, but we got, we had conversations with about 25 recreation professionals who've done something similar. So we know this is a real thing, and we know we need to get additional supports to the community for that.
And being able to, thanks, Martin, and being able to really tell that story. A lot of when you're engaging with the government and talking about some of the challenges you face. We're also working with Recreation and Parks in Nunavut, and the challenges that they face in terms of upkeep of facilities and the delivery schedules, procurement, everything. Government doesn't necessarily know that. They're so far removed. So even being able to take this information from people on the ground to bring it forward to government with specific recommendations that are grounded in experience, that's really powerful. So that's we've been able to do that, and we really appreciate the association, all the members, for being able to input into that story, because I think it's a really strong story. In terms of sector and workforce development, as Martin said, you know, there's job need everywhere. It's really connecting youth to those jobs. Government just announced $2 billion for enabling youth to be in trades, and our positioning is great. Trades are great jobs, excellent in identifying that youth need a pathway into those jobs. But there's also this broad sector that's often youth's first job. So we want to enable people to go down that path as well, and to put a focus on youth employment development in the sector. So that's our fourth recommendation around expanding CPRA's role in the in the youth employment strategy at the federal level.
Yeah, I just add one thing to that, Rose, which is simply youth unemployment is the highest that it's been in a generation. Our sector really needs workers. And by the way, yes, this is good first-time jobs for youth, but it's also a real career for many people, and many of them are not aware of it. So youth unemployment is high. Our sector needs workers, and CPRA is uniquely positioned to help fill that gap. And I'm now going to invite our senior program Director Colleen Decker to talk a little bit about the Green Jobs program, because it's something that we actually do, and we would like to expand this program and expand even beyond this program. Colleen, welcome. Over to you. Thank you for everything you do for CPRA.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, well, my name is Colleen Decker. I've had the pleasure of working on the Green Jobs Initiative for the last 3 years, and honestly, one of the things I'm most proud of is the impact that the program has on young people across the country. Green Jobs has created thousands of opportunities for youth in every province and territory, helping to build Canada's green workforce while supporting communities at the local level. And what I really love about the program is that it's not just about creating jobs, it's about creating opportunities. In 2025 alone, 50% of our participants identified as Indigenous, racialized, or living with a disability, while an additional 33% identified as facing other barriers to employment. That's something we're really proud of. It shows that the program is reaching youth who may not otherwise have access to these kinds of opportunities. And when more young people can see themselves in the green sector, it significantly strengthens the future of that workforce. Through these placements, youth aged 15 to 30 gain paid work experience in the sector. And along the way, they're building transferable skills like leadership, teamwork, communication, and problem solving. For many, it's their first professional experience, their first mentor, and as Martin alluded to, their first step towards a long-term career. The demand for this program continues to grow every year. We consistently receive more high-quality applications from employers than we can fund, which tells us there's a real appetite in the sector and a need for programs like this across Canada. So when we say that the program is ready to scale, we mean it. The interest is there, the impact is proven, and expanded investment would immediately translate into more jobs, more opportunities for youth, and stronger communities right across the country. Back over to you, Martin.
That's amazing, Colleen. Thank you so much for that, and for all the work that you do around here driving this program, and everything else that you do to contribute to CPRA's success. Okay, so I just want to pause quickly here. That's our pre-budget submission, which becomes our de facto advocacy agenda. But I want you to, it fits into the broader discussion. So we'll talk about this in a moment, but I just wanted to remind everyone that we have these 5 big programs, Framework, Can Active Insights, and we're going to talk about something called the Advocacy Capacity Building Initiative in a moment. We talked briefly about Summit 2.0, and then I keep teasing it. We're going to launch something pretty exciting. But before we do that, we want to put up a poll. So Emma, may I ask you to put up the poll on our pre-budget submission? So if you folks could, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important are these issues? How important is infrastructure, workforce development, crisis preparedness response, and how important is support for the idea behind the framework, which is a more coordinated collective? By the way, you're allowed to answer 5 for all of them. This is not ranking the issues. This is, are these issues important to you? What we're hearing is they are, and what we want to do is just validate that. So we'll let you take a moment.
Martin, the first one doesn't seem to have a name, but that should be infrastructure.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that, Colleen. So the first one is infrastructure. The second one, workforce development. Third is crisis preparedness and response. Oops. And then the fourth is supporting the idea behind the framework and the National Backbone Organization. All right. Okay, so I think we will close that one, see what the results are. Okay. Okay, as suspected. Okay, look, crisis preparedness, less important in some communities. And national backbone, okay, generally support, but it looks like people are generally supportive of what we're asking. Some of them are prioritizing things a little bit higher. Okay, that's great. Very useful for us. Okay, let us go back to any questions. So folks, feel free to post some questions in the Q&A and we will get to them while you're writing up those questions. I'm going to look at some of the other questions that we had in the chat. So an anonymous attendee asks, with the Canada Summer Jobs Grant Program being oversubscribed and funding decisions often made at constituency level with MP, do organizations like CPRA have any formal channel to provide feedback? Yes, we do. And we provide feedback on the Canada Summer Jobs Program. We do that regularly and through formal channels. But it's important to note that what we are talking about with the Green Jobs Program and expanding our role and helping advance the Youth Employment Skills Strategy Program, that goes well beyond Canada Summer Jobs, right? So we want to get youth working in many, many different ways. Canada Summer Jobs is one vehicle and one mechanism. But the short answer is yes, we do have a direct channel, and that's the type of thing that we would raise during our advocacy day directly with members of Parliament, when we all come to Ottawa in November. Dan Carruthers Den Hode. Hello, Dan. Don Carruthers Den Hode. Don, welcome. Lovely to see your name here. Has thought been given to tactically framing this submission in terms of sovereignty and national identity? Interesting question. Parks and recreation experiences are opportunities to narrate and re-narrate our values and common history. Similarly, is there an opportunity to articulate parks and recreation as economic drivers beyond direct job provisioning? Yes, there's lots of opportunity to do that. That's part of the CAN Active Insights platform. And attracting corporate office community. I'd refer to the great report CPAW's just created to articulate the value of parks. Thank you for that. I just had the pleasure of meeting with Jason Wong at CPAW's, I think as recently as yesterday. And my colleague Chris Cameron and I are looking closely at the CPAW's report to see how we can integrate it in the CAN Active Insights platform. So 100% Don, great question. And yes. The other thing I will say is in a moment, we're going to be talking about I keep teasing this thing, but we're going to be talking about a campaign. One of the aspects of which is directly celebrating our Canadian identity as a connection to the land and all of the things, attendant benefits of that. So we're going to come back to that in a moment, but I absolutely think that's the case. Eric asks, is the infrastructure being viewed as a tool to educate national and provincial leaders to gaps in infrastructure? Oh, is the infrastructure database being viewed as a tool? We would like it to be used more as a tool. So if you go to canactiveinsights.ca, you can learn more about the program. We have evolved the CPRA infrastructure database. We've joined it with another project that we've been working on with the Canadian Fitness Lifestyle Research Institute called the Measuring Impact Project. And these two things together, along with a number of other things, have created CanActive Insights. So the bottom line is we are doing a major push this summer. Charlie Bender, who is someone that has worked for us the last 3 years, is back. He's going to be leading an initiative to really drive increased upload of infrastructure assets right across the country with the specific goal of providing that data to decision makers to make better decisions about infrastructure. But it's not just about identifying the infrastructure. It's also about now starting calculating the value of that infrastructure. Who's going to that infrastructure? Where do they come from? That kind of thing. So yes, it's a resounding yes. The infrastructure database is an important tool. We would like more people to be using it, and we would love your help getting the word out. Thank you for that, Eric. Okay, this is Gil. Will you ask to fund programs? Infrastructure is needed, but so are programs. Hardware and software often seems easier to get the millions for parks than the thousands to make them work. It's a great question. And what you're talking about is, will we be asking for funding to animate those facilities? So I think one component is the buildings themselves. They need to be fit for purpose. The second is, who are the people that are working in those buildings? Do we have enough people? And then the third is, what programs are we running? Yes, we will be advocating specifically for increased investment in recreational sport. We just had an excellent announcement from Minister Van Couverden. Sorry, I'm going to switch to this view. I happened to be in Vancouver last week, and Secretary of State for Sport, Adam Van Couverden, announced from playground to podium. Within that, we will be advocating for programming dollars, recapitalization of the Community Sport for All initiative, that type of thing. But I know that it goes well beyond that, and so we will be looking at those things as well. And of course, our provincial and territorial members are also working at the provincial level, and with their municipal partners on programs like this. They're doing great work in different parts of the country. But yes, to the programs. Okay, folks, I'm going to stop that there, and we'll come back to these questions if we have the opportunity. Before we move off that, Rose, anything else to close out on this before we jump into the exciting new initiative we're about to launch?
No, just that and I get that there's need at all levels, right? There's need for infrastructure, there's need for programming. Some of those programming dollars come from provincial government, municipal governments, but we also need to bring that issue to the recognition of the federal government. But what we did in positioning these pieces is, how do we become a partner for the federal government? How do we really play into investments that they're planning to make? How do we maximize what they're trying to do? Because often as a partner, what you can bring is your expertise, your experience on the ground, and that really tells a story and then provides that ability to partner and to support those investments. And then you're able to talk more about programming and more about the additional pieces that you want. So it's all kind of a strategy to, here's how we can help you maximize your investment. And as you do that piece, also talking about, and here's what else is needed. But it's a strategic way, to talk to government about what they're already doing, and then to push them to do more. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for that, Rose. Appreciate that. All right, folks. So now on to something super exciting. So we've talked about the collective. We have a longer term vision to get through to phase 3 with a shared agenda and a new collective impact model to apply to the sector. What we've decided to do in this year, as we're in phase 2 of the renewal of the framework for recreation and parks in Canada, is to pilot test the model. What do I mean by that? Well, we are now launching something in close and proud partnership with Homeward Public Affairs called the Advocacy Capacity Building Initiative. What the sector told us was they want us to be bold. They want us to help increase the capacity of the sector to tell its compelling story. And it is a compelling story. But as I tell anyone who's willing to listen, the sector is rapidly evolving. It's deeply misunderstood, but it remains vital to creating the communities that we want to live in. And so what we are launching is an advocacy capacity building initiative story. We're doing that in conjunction with Homeward, and let me just tell you a little bit about it. So the first thing to know is that we want everybody who wants to be involved to be able to be involved. We are going to be offering quite a bit of the curriculum for free, and we want to meet people where they are. So the first thing to note is we're all in advocacy. Okay, I think advocacy is a black box that is misunderstood. It's actually not that complicated. Our definition of advocacy is simply bringing the right people to the right tables to have thoughtful conversations about creating the communities in which we want to live, work, play, and raise our children. What we are inviting everyone to do is to join this at whatever level makes sense. So Tier 1 will be open access. By the way, you're part of Tier 1 right now. The town hall is part of it. We want you to be here, but we're also going to be doing an Advocacy 101 session, totally free, demystifying advocacy on June 10th. And then we will be having additional tiers of engagement. Depending on where you are organizationally, financially, what we're asking for is a small contribution so we can pool our resources to develop and deliver the content. We are going to be having it will depend on where you are financially and what you can do. And so we're going to have a range. And we're not auditing anyone's books. You tell us if you want to get involved, you want to chip in, we will find a level at which you can contribute. And so that's the guided participation. And then there will be a leadership cohort, those who are in the position that they're able to contribute a bit more to this effort. We definitely want to talk to you. We have a number of very, very interesting conversations on the go. But the bottom line is we want to increase the capacity of the sector to engage in advocacy so that our sector is not forgotten in this rather complicated and loud public conversation that we have at the moment. Okay, so, Chapter 1, the National Town Hall, we're here right now. Chapter 2, I mentioned this Advocacy 101, demystifying advocacy. In a moment, we'll give you an opportunity to see if you're interested in that. But mark your calendars, noon Eastern on June 10th is the first session. We'll be delivering it with Homeward, as I mentioned. And then we have a curriculum that we're developing that we will be engaging people with, again, at whatever level makes sense for them. And when I say organizational involvement, we want organizations to be able to chip in, but we're not limiting the number of people participate. If you're an organization and you want to make a $1,500 contribution to help us get the resources to do it, 3 people in your organization are more than welcome to join. The goal here is to get the resources to deliver the program and get as many people ramped up on advocacy as possible. So I'll give you one little window into some of the other things that we're planning. So we have the National Town Hall, the Advocacy 101, looking at how policy is shaped, strategy and positioning. And then the other thing we're going to do is some issue-specific briefings. This is an opportunity for me to give a huge shout out to a number of organizations that are really leaning in on the infrastructure issue. So first thing I'm going to throw flowers at CanActive Insights, right? Everything is data-driven these days, so this is really important. But we are working with an organization called Chandos, Dominic Rees, I hope he's on the call. Just wonderful. These are builders. They know how to build the facilities that we're talking about, and they want to lean in and help us. And so they're part of a infrastructure issue verticals, subject matter expertise group. We've also got Paul Fast on the call. Paul is with a firm called HCMA Architecture, but he also is the president of the Canadian chapter of IAKS. This is a wonderful organization completely dedicated to designing beautiful, usable facilities. I had the opportunity at the BC RPA Symposium last week. Thank you, Katie and Steve Kellogg, for organizing this. But yeah, I had the opportunity to go visit an IACS facility designed by HCMA in Burnaby. It's one of the most beautiful facilities that I've ever seen. And it is an enlightened way to design these facilities. So we've got IACS at the table. And then at pretty much every table I sit is Mike Roma and RC Strategies, so also contributing subject matter expertise. And we have a list of people growing. So if you want to provide subject matter expertise on any of our issue verticals, infrastructure being one, workforce development being the second, crisis preparedness and response being the third, we want to hear from you. We need you. And anyhow, all that to say is that on those issue-specific briefings, we will have the benefit of some very, very thoughtful people. Let me go back and I will ask you, Rose, if you wanted to add anything to the curriculum that we are developing together.
No, just in terms, thanks. That was a good overview, Martin. It is demystifying advocacy. I've been in government relations and advocacy for several years now, and what is really effective, I'll actually just give a quick background. I previously worked for the Daily Bread Food Bank as their VP of Advocacy, and bringing together that collective, particularly across Canada, to really provide that on the ground, what is the experience, and clear asks, and being able to articulate those and come together as a collective is quite impactful. We were able to advocate to get the groceries benefit that you'll see rolling out in June next month. So that collective advocacy is impactful. It does create change, and it can create change beyond just the sector. So I've seen that impact firsthand when folks come together and are singing from the same songbook. And I think what we've heard today is that everyone is pretty much kind of on the same page around what we're looking for in terms of parks and recreation priorities and how we can be engaging with government. And then it gives you the tools also to then locally do that engagement with your at the province, at the municipal level, for really specific asks that you might have. So it provides you that overall piece, and then also that really specific piece that can help you in your own jurisdiction.
That's amazing, Rose. Thank you for that. Okay, folks, we're going to do a quick poll, then we're going to get to some additional questions. Do we have another poll to throw up? Yes, CPRA's Advocacy Capacity Building Initiative. Are you interested in learning more? If you want to be involved in this, just say yes, and then we're going to follow up with you on how to engage. And remember, we will engage with you at whatever tier makes sense. We want to be giving some tools to the sector, which we will be doing for free. Things like our pre-budget submission template, and how we get to it, a draft of an advocacy plan that you can populate and use for whatever advocacy you're doing locally. And ultimately, we want that to be aligned with the national agenda, but we also want you to be empowered to advocate to whomever you have the opportunity to advocate to, and wherever you are in the process in terms of your comfort with it. Okay, we'll leave that up for one more second. And as we do, I'm going to go to a really good question that I just saw. Oh, disappeared from the chat. So Haley Jones, I think, let me get to Haley. You were asking a question of, did we engage with the Future of Sport Commission? And the answer is yes, we did. We testified, we offered written submissions, including what we heard during the consultation phase of the framework. Our message was, I think, well received. And if you go to the Future of Sport Commission in Canada report, you will see that we were cited multiple times, 7 or 8 citations in the back. And so, yes, we are very much involved in that discussion, and we'll be following it. Okay, we can take that poll down, I think. Let's see who's interested. Oh, that's what I was hoping for. Good. Thank you, because we need you, frankly. And as Rose just said, it's a team sport, and we will be much, much what better served if we are all taking our enormous energy and pushing it in the same direction. Okay. All right, folks. I'm going to unshare my screen for a second and get to close to the last item on our agenda, and then we can open it up for some general questions. So my question to you is this. Imagine if on one evening a year, all Canadians stepped outside and enjoyed a sunset or a midnight sun moment together. Imagine the platform that could create for us, the connection to the land, the connection to our Canadian identity, the ability to promote how important it is for our mental and physical well-being to be connected to the natural environment. We are launching right now a national campaign called Everyone Outdoors Together. It's all in the name. And by the way, we're working on the Francophone. So be patient with me, the Francophone members of the audience. We will have a treatment of this as well that makes sense. Probably tout le monde en plein air, something along those lines. But we're launching Everyone Outdoors Together. The idea here is to get everyone outdoors together on the third Saturday of July, July 18th of this year, which happens to be Parks Day in Canada, to enjoy a moment of community and camaraderie and friendship outside. We know we're not going to get everybody outside together this year. So this year, what we're doing is inviting a number of activation partners, and I'll come to them in a moment, to join us so that we can capture all of the campaign material. So the goal here is for this year, we're going to do 6 weeks of pre-event programming. We're going to have the day of national activation, July 18th, and then we're going to do the post-event and start preparing for a bigger launch next year. The idea is we're going to test it this year. We think we're on to something. It's so simple. We're inviting people to do something that we know they already want to do. They just be reminded of. So we want everyone to step outdoors together. And then next year we'll launch it more formally. And the goal is nothing short of making it a new Canadian ritual in the Canadian cultural calendar, where every third Saturday of July, people go outside in whatever way makes sense for them, enjoy time with friends and family to watch a midnight sun or a sunset. We have a growing list of activation partners on board, and I want to dwell on some of these for a moment. So I got to say a huge thank you to Riley Schnur at the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. I don't do anything without Krista Costas Bradstreet at Active Abilities Canada. We have the BC Parks Foundation. Jenny McCaffrey at BC Parks Foundation is a huge part of this idea. It further to a question posed by one of you earlier, are we going to be explicitly connecting outdoor recreation to mental and physical health? Yes. The original thing was that got this whole idea going was how do we raise the profile of the park prescriptions program at the BC Parks Foundation, which is a wonderful program. Delighted that I spoke with Jen Cureton earlier this week at the Canadian Parks Council. They've come on board as an activation partner. Adam Joyner at the Boys and Girls Club here in Ottawa, who's doing something pretty special at the Boys and Girls Club level. They have a number of camps. They're going to be activation partners. Dr. Louise Delanoy at Outdoor Play Canada has come on board. And Outdoor Play Canada, if you know anything about them, they're doing really important work. I strongly recommend you look at their positioning statement on active outdoor play. We have the Ottawa Sport Council, Francis Mercer, I spoke to yesterday. This is a really important one for us because Francis is going to help us understand really how we activate associations at the community level and councils at the community level. CFLRI, again, don't do much without CFLRI. Genwell, if you don't know about Genwell, you should learn about Genwell. Pete Bombachi at Genwell is doing unbelievable work about human connection and the value of it. He's got me talking to all sorts of strangers, which has yielded some really beautiful moments. Trans-Canada Trails on board. Matthew Roy, wonderful to have Trans-Canada Trail on board. It's really important to note that Trans-Canada Trail, they're doing their own campaigns as well. And so I really encourage you to look at what Trans-Canada Trail is doing. It's unbelievable work. They've got something coming up in June, and then they also have a fall event. So they have other things happening, and I encourage everyone to participate in those as well. And of course, we have, I mentioned earlier, we don't do anything without our 13 provincial and territorial recreation and parks associations. They are our strength, and we are able to communicate with so many of you through those partners. So that's the idea. We invite you all to be on board. We also want to celebrate the contribution of Arctic, who have done the graphic design for us on a pro bono basis, which we're very pleased with. And of course, Homeward, David Gourlay, who I believe is on the call, is really helping us get the word out and generate some resources. Right now, we're recruiting activation partners. We very much want people to help us bring the campaign to life. There's no cost, and we think you can get lots of benefit out of it by being an activation partner. But we're also looking for some funding partners to give us the resources to do it properly. But we're not in a race here. We want to prove the concept. But if you know a funding partner who would like to get involved in this and give us a modest amount of resources to get it going, we want to hear from you. And again, I just want to reiterate that the campaign is really on whatever terms. If you want to go paddle, paddle. If you want to go on a hike, go on a hike. If you want to take your octogenarian mother who is in a wheelchair living in a care home, on a walk in your local park, absolutely. You want to go rollerblading like I did in the 90s, whatever. But we want everyone outdoors together. And we think we can create a very powerful platform to talk about all the stuff that we really care about. Okay, so I'm going to go to a final poll here. Emma, if I could ask you to bring that up. And the question is, are you interested in becoming an activation partner? What does that mean? It just means you'll take our toolkit, you will share it with the audiences that make sense in your network, and you will invite them to participate in whatever way makes sense for them. Our goal, ultimately, is to have everyone outdoors together. Our goal in the near term is to test the idea and see if we can do something kind of fun, very low lift, but high return. And this is the most important thing, is to create this platform to talk about all the stuff we care about: mental health, belonging, our community, our Canadian identity, the natural world, etc. So we hope you'll join us. More info to follow. Okay, let's close that poll, Emma, see what people have to say about that. Oh my God. Okay. Amazing. We think it's a good idea. We hope you do too. All right, folks. So what I'm going to do now is just take any other questions before I kick it back over to Cassidy to bid us all farewell. I'm going to stop sharing there so I can pay attention. We've got about 15 minutes left, and please do post some questions in the chat. I'm going to go back to some of the ones that we haven't answered. So, and we'll jump around a bit here. Okay, so, open question. So anonymous attendee, we're seeing declining enrollment in recreation college and university programs across the province here in Ontario. How will the workforce development component help address this? I don't know, but address it must. I think that we're seeing declining enrollment and actually programs closing. I know at Algonquin College, I believe they closed the recreation program. And of course, that's tied into a fairly complicated political aspect of the national conversation around immigration, which has had, I think, serious unintended consequences for colleges and universities across the country. So I don't know precisely. I do know that it is an issue we want to tackle. And I do have the benefit of having the advice and guidance of people like Kim Goodman, who spearheads the Rural Recreation Association here in Ontario. I get to speak at those events quite regularly. But we also have folks like Joanne Schroeder out at Victoria Island University, Aggie Wheel, who has extensive experience on this. So we're building a community of practice around this issue. It's an important question. We do have to tackle it. Okay, anonymous attendee asks, will there be a focus on rural areas within Saskatchewan? It seems every time we apply for any infrastructure funding that we're consistently turned away, understanding that there are many areas across Canada and limited funding, but it seems the larger centers are chosen over rural in the West. So absolutely. So what we know is that recreation and parks infrastructure, both indoors and outdoors, is important in every community, but it is really important in rural and remote communities. Parks is interesting depending on where you are in the country, obviously. Parks in the north, for example, are not the same thing as they are in the south. But infrastructure everywhere is failing. What I would recommend the anonymous attendee is to engage with SPRA. SPRA is your provincial Recreation and Parks Association in Saskatchewan. They're on the leading edge of all of these questions. And I work very closely with Todd and Darcy and the team there. So anything that we're doing related to the infrastructure ask will involve provincial and territorial contributions. So the short answer is yes, but we're doing it in partnership with your jurisdiction. Okay, do you have a plan to try and incorporate recreation in the workday? Everyone says that they do not have time for recreation, but they do have time to binge watch shows on Netflix. So there's two things coming up here. So the short answer is no. I don't think we have a plan to specifically mobilize people. That would be something that we would invite in partnership with others. We just simply don't have the resources to do a broad-based campaign to reach Canadians and get them to change their behavior. That's something we would look at very closely with another partner we work with regularly, Participaction, who's doing amazing work. But there's a couple of other questions that are raised here. One is screen time. I think that that's a really important issue. And yes, that will be a focus of our efforts. And we absolutely do encourage people to, put the screens down and engage in recreation activities. Pete at Genwell will tell you, put your screen down and talk to people. And that's going to solve a lot of your problems. We have partners, Outdoor Play Canada, say go outside and play. We know these things are really important. And the last point of your question was related to, this idea of, can we activate people during the day? Well, Elizabeth Ayres, who's the former CPRA board member from Vancouver, or from British Columbia, excuse me, she was the representative of BCRPA. Early in my tenure, she really enlightened me by saying, Martin, we think about recreation all wrong. Recreation is not the thing that you do at the end of the day should you have time. It is the thing that you do, and we have to build a society that allows you to do it at the end of the day so that you have the energy to be a contributor to our society. So I think, questioner, that's an anonymous attendee that posed that question, I think that one of the things we're trying to do is get a cultural shift in this country and make people really kind of assert themselves, saying that recreation is important. How we use our free time is important. Okay, now I'm going to go to one last questions. Dawn Carruthers Den Hode, has the Everyone Outdoors Together activation been designed through a behavioral insights lens? No, but Dawn, can we talk? Get out of my depth really soon. And by the way, we are in the process of designing. So we would love your help and your thoughts on this. There's a public sector group in BC and research group at UBC, Sauder School of Business, that might offer good advice. Thank you. I would welcome a connection to that group. And perhaps the resources you are seeing could come from applying for research funding with an academic partner. Love it. Thank you. And again, Dawn, on all of this, need your help, frankly. So if you wouldn't mind getting in touch, you know how to get in touch with me directly or through CJ. We're absolutely welcoming not just people who can become activation partners, but people who have ideas and questions just like this. Okay, I think the last question, oh no, we have two questions left, so I think we can get to them all. So Pierre Thibault asks, with rapid growth in rural communities, residents increasingly expect same recreation services as urban centers. How can funding models better support growing rural communities, especially where recreation is largely volunteer-led and limited staff and volunteer capacity declining? So the volunteer capacity is interesting. We're in discussions right now with Volunteer Canada. about how to address that in the context of the framework and in the context of our Measuring Impact project. I will get out of my depth quickly if I offered, strategy on how to address the challenges in the rural communities. What I would suggest that you do is engage with your provincial or territorial recreation and park association, engage with them on the strategies that they're looking at that make sense for your jurisdiction. And yeah, and what the future of rural recreation looks like if sustainable funding is not addressed. Well, honestly, what does our entire society look like if we continue to deprioritize recreation? I think it becomes an economic issue because you're not going to attract workers to the places where we need workers. I mean, there's a whole range of things that the mental and physical health impacts. One of our messages to all levels of government, but particularly to the federal and to the provincial levels of government, is wise upstream investment in recreation and parks and increased physical activity is proven to take an enormous load off of our healthcare system. We have to start taking these issues more seriously. They are low-hanging fruit, and fortunately, we're getting some signals that people are listening. And so, again, part of the Advocacy Capacity Building Initiative, and we need all of us pushing in the same direction. Okay, last question will go to Jackie Bourgeois. Many mature adults, retirees, and seniors actually prefer to be active during the day. Yes, this has been our experience, and we develop programs to accommodate that. Totally agree. My mother-in-law, who lives with us, is very, very active during the day. And actually, there are quite a few supports in Ottawa. I'm not sure if that's the same right across the country, but there are quite a few supports. She does play pickleball. I know it's everyone's favorite sport. But she also does swimming and many other things during the day. I think it's really important for seniors to have those activation opportunities. Also would be remiss if I didn't shout out the great work at Active Abilities Canada. They've got a municipal guide for making sure that everyone of differing abilities are able to engage. Okay, I think that's the questions that we have posed. What I would like to do now is invite Cassidy Robinson. I'm going to just share here again to come and let you know how we can stay in touch. From my perspective, folks, it's really wonderful seeing you all. We had like well over 200 people on the call. Great questions. We hope that was of value to you. I'm easy to reach directly anytime. We're doing this together. Merci beaucoup à toutes et à tous pour être ici aujourd'hui. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. And now, Cassidy, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, so hi everybody. My name's Cassidy and I manage communications here at CPRA. And we just really want to encourage you to obviously keep in touch. If you found any of these topics or initiatives interesting to you, you want to be involved or learn more, please follow us on our social media. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. These are our handles. It's always going to be CPRA_or-ACPL. And this is where we're going to be keeping you updated on everything we have going on. I also want to encourage you to subscribe to our mailing list. So I have a little QR code here. You can scan that with your phone if you want to sign up right now, just to stay up to date on everything recreation and parks. So here we kind of share funding opportunities, training opportunities, events across the country, and opportunities to get involved or provide feedback on things like the framework. We only send out one monthly newsletter, so we're not going to be spamming you all the time. So we really encourage you to sign up. And then we also want to note everybody who attended this webinar is going to be entered into a draw to win a $100 Met gift card to get you geared up for summer. So later this week, hopefully on Friday, we're going to be sending out a follow-up email with a recording of this webinar for those who had to jump off early or if you just want to revisit some things. And we're also going to be announcing the winner of that draw in that follow-up. So just keep an eye out for that email, hopefully coming out on Friday. And we hope to see you in our channels and in our mailing list. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Cassidy, and thank you, everyone. Have a great day.